Welcome back to Building Foundations, the podcast by DGI Waterproofing. Glad to have you with us for episode 7.
Great to be here.
Last time, we dug into why those basement inspections are so critical here in Ontario, especially, with all the spring rain we get. But today we're tackling something just as important, flood insurance.
Definitely a hot topic.
Yeah.
With a good reason, I'd say.
It really hit home for me the other day. We had that crazy downpour here in the GTA, and my basement window wells were looking a little suspect, even with their waterproofing systems in place. It really got me thinking about how vulnerable even well-protected homes can be to water damage.
Absolutely. And you're right, it's not just basements anymore. With these wild weather patterns, flood risk is a concern for more and more homeowners, regardless of where they live.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First things first. What are the real risks of flooding, and how do we even begin to understand them?
Well, it all starts with awareness, I think. Floods aren't just limited to those areas traditionally considered flood-prone. Climate change is bringing more intense rainfall and extreme weather events. So a flood risk assessment is crucial for every homeowner.
So it's not just about living near a lake or river anymore. You're saying anyone could be at risk.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that flood risk assessments consider a whole range of factors, not just proximity to water. Rainfall, snowmelt, soil conditions, even the age of your property and foundation type come into play. You might be surprised to learn that soil type can be even more critical than proximity to water in determining how quickly water infiltrates.
That's interesting. So it's a much more complex calculation than most people realize. And this is where those flood zones come into play, right?
Precisely. These zones, classified by the government, determine your level of risk and have significant implications for insurance premiums and even building requirements. For example, a high-risk zone might require homeowners to elevate their properties or install flood vents to qualify for coverage.
Speaking of insurance, let's say you realize, hey, maybe I am at risk. What's the next step?
That's where flood insurance becomes essential. It's about protecting your investment, plain and simple. In Canada, we typically see two main types of policies: comprehensive and standalone.
Let's break those down. What does each type of policy actually cover?
A comprehensive policy is the most thorough, offering protection for both the building itself and the contents inside furniture, appliances, personal belongings, the whole 9 yards. It's the gold standard, especially for high-risk zones or homeowners seeking complete peace of mind.
So comprehensive provides extensive coverage. Makes sense. But with the rising cost of insurance these days, when does it really make sense to opt for comprehensive over a more basic standalone policy?
That's a great question, and it often comes down to individual needs and budget. Standalone policies typically only cover the structure of your home, the actual building itself. While this might be sufficient for some homeowners, consider the potential cost of replacing everything inside your home in a flood event.
That's a really good point. It's easy to overlook the value of those contents until you have to replace them. So when considering those costs, comprehensive seems like a safer bet, even if it comes with a slightly higher premium.
Exactly. It's an investment in peace of mind. Now, I know insurance is full of fine print and technical terms. Are there any gotchas homeowners should be aware of with flood insurance?
That's a question we get all the time at DGI. What are those key details people tend to overlook?
You may think you're covered for sewer backup under a comprehensive policy, but that's often excluded. Always double-check for a specific rider for that type of coverage. And remember, damage from earthquakes, tsunamis, or certain other natural disasters might not be covered under a standard flood insurance policy. Read that fine print carefully.
Great advice. And a good reminder that not all policies are created equal. Speaking of policies, what factors typically influence those flood insurance rates? What can make it more expensive?
Location is a major factor, as you might expect. Properties in high-risk flood zones or areas known for frequent heavy rainfall will face higher premiums. But it's not just geography. Your property's overall flood risk level also plays a significant role.
So things like the age of a home, foundation type, and even the elevation of the property can come into play.
Precisely. Older homes with basements built on lower ground are inherently at higher risk. And of course, the type of coverage you choose matters. Those comprehensive policies with their wider coverage come with higher premiums than the basic standalone ones.
It's all about assessing and mitigating risk, much like what we do at DGI when waterproofing basements. The higher the risk, the higher the cost of protection.
Exactly. And while insurance is crucial, prevention is always the best medicine.
Okay, so let's say you've assessed your risk and decided flood insurance is a must-have. What are the steps involved in actually meeting those insurance requirements?
First, you need to determine what flood zone your property falls under. Thankfully, there are government-created maps available to help with that. Once you know your zone, you can start exploring insurance providers and policies.
And this is where those building requirements we mentioned earlier come into play, right? Depending on your flood zone, you might need specific upgrades to qualify for coverage.
Absolutely. Think elevating your home, installing flood vents, or using flood-resistant materials during renovations. And remember those basement inspections we discussed in the last episode? Those can be incredibly helpful in identifying potential flood risks and determining what preventative measures you might need. It all ties back to understanding your home's vulnerabilities.
So it's a multifaceted approach. Understanding your risk, getting the right insurance, and taking proactive steps to protect your home. Speaking of protection, what happens if, despite all these measures, a flood does occur? What's the process for filing a claim?
The golden rule. Contact your insurance company immediately after the flood. Time is of the essence. Document everything thoroughly with photos and videos. The more detailed your documentation, the smoother the claims process will be.
And I imagine you'll be working closely with an insurance adjuster throughout that process.
Absolutely. They'll assess the damage and determine your payout. Be patient, organized, and don't hesitate to ask questions. Your insurance company is there to help you navigate this challenging situation.
Great advice. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dives, can you give us some specific examples of what might not be covered by flood insurance? We touched on those limitations and exclusions earlier, but I think a few real-world examples would be helpful for our listeners.
Certainly. As we mentioned, sewer backup is a common exclusion. Imagine a heavy downpour overwhelms the municipal sewer system, causing sewage to back up into your basement. That's a nightmare scenario, and it's often not covered under standard flood insurance. You'll need a separate rider for that type of protection.
So even if you have a comprehensive policy, you can still be vulnerable to certain types of water damage.
Exactly. It underscores the importance of understanding the specifics of your coverage. Another example. Let's say a nearby river overflows its banks due to heavy rainfall. Now, damage from that river flooding would typically be covered under flood insurance. But if that same river floods due to a dam failure, well, that could be considered negligence and might not be covered.
Wow, that's a crucial distinction. It really highlights the complexity of flood insurance and why it's so important to work with a knowledgeable insurance professional.
Couldn't agree more. They can help you navigate those nuances and find the right coverage for your specific situation. In part one, we covered a lot of ground, from understanding those evolving flood risks to navigating that often complex world of insurance policies.
Now let's shift gears and talk about what homeowners can actually do to minimize their risk of flood damage.
Right, because while insurance is crucial, prevention is always the best medicine.
I love that. Prevention is the best medicine. And, we say that a lot here at DGI. We're all about proactive waterproofing solutions.
Absolutely, and it all starts with a thorough assessment of your property. Take a walk around, both inside and out, and look for any potential vulnerabilities.
Like what kinds of things? What are some red flags homeowners should be looking for?
Well, start with your gutters and downspouts. Are they clear of debris? Are they directing water away from your foundation? This is something, we see all the time at DGI. Clogged gutters can send water cascading right toward your foundation, leading to all sorts of problems.
So simple maintenance can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And while you're at it, take a look at the grading around your house. The ground should slope away from your foundation, not towards it.
Makes sense. Otherwise, you're basically creating a moat around your house.
Exactly. You don't want water pooling around your foundation. It's just asking for trouble.
What about landscaping? Can that play a role in flood prevention?
Definitely. Avoid planting trees or shrubs too close to your foundation. Their roots can damage your foundation and create pathways for water to seep in.
That's a good point. And I imagine those underground downspout drainage systems we install at DGI can be a big help here too.
100%. Proper drainage is key. We want to make sure that rainwater is directed away from your home's foundation as efficiently as possible.
It's one of the most effective ways to prevent water damage, and it's a core part of our approach here at DGI.
Right. We're not just fixing problems after they occur. We're helping homeowners prevent them in the first place.
Okay, so we've covered the exterior. What about inside the house? Any preventative measures we can take there?
Absolutely. Make sure your sump pump is in good working order. And consider installing a backup sump pump system for added protection. Especially, if you live in an area prone to power outages.
Those backup systems can really provide peace of mind during a storm, especially with the increasing frequency of, these extreme weather events.
For sure. And here's another tip. Think about installing backflow valves in your sewer lines. These valves prevent sewage from backing up into your home during heavy rainfall.
That's not something I'd want to deal with, not to mention, the potential health hazards.
Right. And if you have a finished basement, consider using flood-resistant materials for your flooring and walls.
So even if water does get in, the damage will be minimized.
Exactly. It's all about layers of protection.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of great prevention tips. Now let's switch gears back to insurance. We know there are different types of flood insurance policies out there. How can homeowners choose the right one for their specific needs and budget?
Well, the first step is to, honestly assess your risk level. Consider your location, the age and structure of your home, and any past history of flooding in your area.
And if you're not sure, a professional assessment can be really helpful, right?
Absolutely. At DGI, we offer comprehensive basement inspections that can help identify potential flood risks and recommend those appropriate preventative measures.
We like to say that knowledge is power. When you understand the risks, you can take steps to mitigate them.
Exactly. So once you have a good grasp of your risk level, you can start comparing policies. Coverage limits are crucial. Make sure the policy provides enough coverage to repair or redone your home in the event of a major flood.
Don't skimp on coverage just to save a few bucks on your premium.
Right. It's better to be overinsured than underinsured when it comes to flood damage. Also, pay close attention to the deductible. That's the amount you'll have to pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in.
Higher deductible, lower premium, and vice versa. It's a balancing act.
Exactly. And as we mentioned earlier, carefully review the exclusions and limitations of each policy. Make sure you understand what's covered and what's not.
You don't want any surprises when you need to file a claim.
For example, some policies might exclude damage from sewer backup or overland flooding. You might need additional coverage for those specific risks. And don't be afraid to shop around and compare quotes from different insurance providers.
It's like buying a car or a house, right?
Yeah,
you want to get the best deal.
And don't hesitate to ask your insurance broker or agent plenty of questions. They're there to help you navigate the world of flood insurance and find the best coverage for your needs.
They're the experts. It's their job to guide you through the process.
Now, before we move on to our final part, I want to address something we hear a lot from homeowners. Flood insurance is too expensive. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a valid concern, especially with, the rising cost of living these days. But here at DGI, we believe that flood insurance is an investment, not an expense. It's about protecting your most valuable asset, your home, from a potentially devastating event.
It's about peace of mind, knowing that your home is safe and secure no matter what Mother Nature throws your way.
And when you compare the cost of flood insurance to the potential cost of repairing or rebuilding your home after a flood, it really puts things into perspective.
The financial burden of a flood can be crippling, especially if you're not adequately insured.
We've seen it firsthand, working with homeowners who have experienced flood damage. It can be a truly devastating experience, both financially and emotionally.
And even if you live in a low-risk area, remember that floods can happen anywhere, anytime. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Well said. In parts 1 and 2, we talked about understanding those flood risks, exploring those different types of insurance policies available, and we highlighted some preventative measures that homeowners can take.
Now let's wrap things up by looking ahead to the future of flood risk in Canada and what it means for homeowners like you.
So what does the crystal ball tell us? Are we expecting more of these extreme weather events in the years to come?
Unfortunately, yeah. All signs point to, yes, climate change is a reality, and it's already impacting weather patterns globally.
We're seeing more frequent and intense rainfall, severe storms, those rising sea levels, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And these trends are projected to intensify in the coming decades, meaning flood risk will likely increase for many Canadians.
That's a sobering thought. What does this mean for homeowners, though? What can they do to prepare for these increasing risks?
Well, it means that being proactive about flood prevention and protection is more important than ever before. We can't just, cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Exactly. We need to be prepared, not scared.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where DGI waterproofing comes in.
Absolutely. Our expertise lies in helping homeowners protect their properties from water damage, both inside and out.
From those basement waterproofing systems to foundation repairs, some pump installations, and our signature underground downspout drainage systems.
Yeah, we've got you covered.
We've got you covered.
We use the latest technologies and techniques to make sure your home is as watertight as possible.
And we're constantly evolving our strategies, staying ahead of the curve when it comes to those, latest flood prevention measures.
So if you're concerned about flood risk, don't wait until it's too late. Reach out to us for a free consultation.
Our team will assess your property and recommend the best course of action to keep your home safe and dry.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Go for it.
Remember, investing in flood protection isn't just about protecting your physical property. It's also about protecting your peace of mind, knowing that your home is safe and secure no matter what Mother Nature throws your way.
It's about taking control, being proactive and safeguarding your investment.
Exactly. So to sum up, folks, understand your flood risk. Take those preventative measures and ensure you have the right insurance coverage in place.
And remember, DGI Waterproofing is here to support you every step of the way.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into flood insurance. We hope you found it informative and empowering.
Make sure to tune in next time for another episode of Building Foundations, the podcast by DGI Waterproofing.
Until then,
Stay dry, stay safe.